Good evening, friends. We welcome you to Aster Volunteer COVID web series. Today we are going to discuss about implication of COVID-19 in cardiac, diabetes and hypertensive care and patients. To guide us on same, today we have expert panel of doctors from Aster DM Healthcare, Qatar. Today we have Dr. Joji, specialist cardiology with us. Hello doctor, welcome.
Hello.
We have Dr. Girish Kumar. He is a specialist internal medicine. Welcome, doctor. So let's start with some common question which every patient has in their mind. We'll start with the cardiology, doctor. Common question which patient asks nowadays is, any cardiac patient having hypertension or having any cardiac condition are at more risk of getting COVID infection? Is that true?
Well, yes, Dr. Mahesh. Not only hypertension or cardiac disease, there was a bulletin by the American Heart Association for cardiac caregivers, and they looked at the Wuhan or the Chinese CDC data, and what they found was when there was comorbid conditions, around 20 to 25% of the people having comorbid conditions were people who was susceptible to getting COVID infections, and these people were the ones who perceived more symptoms. Now, if you look at the American CDC data, the people who ended up in the CCU, around 20% of them were the ones who had heart disease, and around 18 to 19% was one who had diabetes. So, and even if you look at the Chinese data again, those who were having mortality, around 10.5% of them were the ones who had cardiac disease.
Okay.
So, I would say in a short sentence, yes, the trends right now seem like the heart disease and any underlying comorbid conditions makes the person more susceptible to have COVID infection, and they're more symptomatic.
Okay. And cardiac patients are likely to develop more severe symptoms than other population, or it is same, how it is?
Thing is, Dr. Mahesh, we can't put cardiac patients into one bucket.
Okay.
All right. Now, how I would put it is, you need to weigh three aspects here. One is the level of immunity. Now, second is heart is a pump. So we need to look at the pump reserve capacity. And the last thing is, this pump is run by electrical activity. So the stability of electrical activity also matters. Now, what am I trying to say here? Let's take one by one. Let's take immunity. Now, if people are having low immunity, then they are more prone to any infection. COVID is no exception to that. And you have conditions where people are post-cardiac transplant, for example, let's say, they will be on immunosuppressants, so their immunity is low. Or people suffering from cancer who are on certain treatments which can cause cardiac issues. So these people have low immunity, and they are more susceptible to the heart being under more stress, right? So number one is immunity. Second thing I said is heart is a pump. Now, everything depends on the pump reserve. Okay. Now, if the heart, which was let's say a 7 horsepower pump, for certain reasons of myocardial damage, has dropped down to 3 horsepower, and now the COVID has attacked the body, and there is infection, inflammation of the lungs, which causes, say, low oxygenation. To make up for this low oxygenation, the heart has to pump hard, and the workload on the heart is very high. Now, with a sick heart, they are more prone to heart failure. Okay. And the last thing I said was electrical stability. Now, the heart is a pump. It requires electricity to come in a very in a smooth, non-chaotic, stable fashion to make sure that this heart pumps smoothly. Any of these pro-inflammatory setups can cause electrical storms, and these electrical storms will sometimes make the heart dysfunction. Or these are the situations where you see certain people need to be shocked.
Understood.
All right. So now let's give you an example for each. Like I already said, as far as the immunity is concerned, people with cancers, all right, and people who are on post cardiac transplant. As far as the pump failure is concerned, let's take people who had suffered a massive heart attack, who's got a weak pump, or people who have got conditions like cardiomyopathy, whose heart is weak. So these are the people who will suffer. And as far as electricity is concerned, people who are having baseline arrhythmias like arrhythmogenic right ventricular cardiomyopathy or Brugada syndrome, for example, when the temperature goes up, that might itself be a trigger for the Brugada syndromes to have dangerous arrhythmias. So to sum up the things, you cannot say heart disease in general. So there are different types of heart disease, and based on what kind of a heart disease a person is having, and one of these three mechanisms or a combination of these three mechanisms, that's what brings the cardiac patients down.
Okay.
I hope I was clear.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. One more thing which many patients have asked, and even we keep seeing on the various platforms, that there are reports that COVID-19 may induce myocarditis and pericarditis, and patients who are having previous history of such disease are having more risk of getting pericarditis and myocarditis. Is that true?
I mean, it's too premature to make a comment on that subject because COVID-19 is relatively new. There are, diseases which can cause relapse pericarditis and myocarditis. For example, we have when it comes to virus, the Coxsackie virus or the enterovirus is known to cause relapsing pericarditis. Whether COVID-19 does that, it's too premature to say. We just is introduced to this virus and we are dealing with the menace of it right now. Now it will require them to be healed from this, and then the pericarditis has to come. So we don't have the data yet to answer. It is possible, it not need to be possible. So it's what time is going to tell us.
But precautions to be taken definitely, right?
The thing is with pericarditis, there is no precautions that you can take. If it comes, we need to deal with it at that point in time.
Understood. Now, various report, doctor, we are seeing the COVID-19 mortality. It is highly affecting the 60 plus age group. Does this anything to do specifically why that mortality is too high, above 60, because of the cardiac condition, hypertension, or it is because of other reasons as well?
It's a trend that's being seen. Why in this age it's particularly, in all possibility, as we grow older, the tendency to have multiple disease is there. Now, if you look at the Chinese data again, those who were in the age group of 70 to 80, their incidence of mortality and morbidity is like around 8%. And when it was more than 80 years old, it almost jumped to 14.8%. So we do see an age-related effect of this virus. It's more in the elderly, and that's one reason why we need to protect the elderly on one hand. Second thing is, because you see it in 65 plus, that should not be a reason for us to have misplaced courage, right? That doesn't mean the young will be exempted from it. For that matter, many of our colleagues in US and other parts who were frontliners who were in this are very young, who succumb to this issue. So I think we need to understand that the elderly are more prone, hence those who are affected must maintain the social distance and ensure those who are older do not are protected by not getting them exposed.
Doctor, one more thing, like this cardiac patients require long-term medication because there is no cure. Hypertensive patients need to have continuous medication. So when they should seek a medical attention, if they develop what kind of symptom they should visit definitely, because at the time now we are saying stay home campaign where majority of the patients are not coming out for the care, for their regular follow-ups, and so what's the advice, your advice and take home for that?
See, what I would say is, why do we tell people to stay home? It's to prevent infection spread. That's the principal reason why the stay home campaign is there. But there should always be room for common sense. Like in the sense, when you are at home and you are facing a symptom or an issue which if the COVID was not there, you would call the emergency services. I think you should appeal to your judgment there and definitely seek help where you know that you cannot manage yourself the situation at home. So my advice is let's keep COVID apart. Would you have called emergency in this situation or whatever you're facing? Then you should go ahead and use that judgment and discretion, and where you cannot handle, seek expert advice.
Okay, so do you advise this elder population or risk population to visit medical centers or a hospital, or there is any other channel where patient can, be safer at home and they can seek a care?
I mean, it depends on patient to patient. We can't generalize the whole thing. If the person we are following up is got a long-term follow-up data with us, if it's just to renew prescriptions or just seek advice, we can always use the tele-services for it. Could be a telephone service, online, face-to-face interview. These things is possible. But there are certain situations where you need to see the patient to offer better care. In those situations, they can come. They need to check in advance whether an appointment is available, etc. But by and large, people who are stable, people who have been under regular follow-up, we can avoid them coming to the hospital and use teleservices. I would say at least now 25 to 30% of the consultations right now in the early stages has changed to telecardiology.
That's good. And what's your advice, doctor, to, if I don't have medicine for tomorrow, can I avoid that medicine? It's okay, or what should I do? I don't have medicine now for tomorrow, whether I should go out and buy, or what is to continuity of the care? What is your advice for the population?
Again, Dr. Mahesh, we cannot generalize and give an answer. There are certain medicines which are very essential, and immediately you don't have to replace, but eventually it has to be there on board. That's the first reason why that prescription is there in the first place. Now, to answer that question, there is one line of defense. Now, I told you heart is a pump, and if you exert, that's when you put the pump to stress. So if you don't have a particular medicine, etc., one strategy you can, I'm not advocating it, but one strategy that you can employ is do not do things that will stress the heart. Okay. It will give you a little amount of time to sort of procure the medications. For example, person with pump failure, do not get into situations you are exerting yourself too much, or do not overload yourself with excess fluid or excess salt. These are the things which will sort of push the person into easy heart failure. Say you do not have diuretics immediately with you. So these are the things how you can go about for a particular amount of time. But then what you need, if you need some medications, you need to have those medications, and we should always plan things. Like you don't wait till the last moment to get your medications. If you are, you need to have a count of it, and say about a week before it gets over, contact your physician. Arrangements are made so that sometimes, for example, Aster, we deliver medications to home now.
Okay, that's good. So because basically we should continue the medicine as per the physician advice to avoid any grave consequences. True. Totally agree. And as you just mentioned about the stress, cardiac stress, just I'm coming to because all the diabetic patient, majority of the cardiac patient, we advise them for a walk at least for 30-40 minutes. Now because of the stay home campaign and definitely because of the awareness in the public, they are not coming out and they are not going for a walk. What will be your advice for those population, how they can manage? It is a very difficult scenario, but still if you can answer.
No, well, the thing is, these are stressful times. Many of the blessings we had as privileges are now taken away from us. Now in stressful times, we have to adapt. So that would be my answer to it. You can say do on-the-spot jogging. You can, we were taught physical exam education in school where we do jumping jacks and all those things. We can do that. Now the word of caution here is how much effort and exercise would you do? If you look at Google, there are thousands of exercises that you can do at home. But for a person having heart disease, where do you know what's the balance like? One advice I can give is like you have to keep it to, let's say, around 65% of your target heart rate for age. That is calculated like 220 minus your age. That's the simplest formula. There are other formulas, but 220 minus age will give you 100% of for your age. Keep to 65%. That will be a mild to a sort of moderate intensity exercise. That's one clue. The second thing is called as rate of perceived exertion. Okay, there is a scale for that, and I will try to make it more simple. The simple solution is if you can sing or hum a tune while you are exercising, that's your body telling you that this level of activity is suitable for me. So I would use a combination of these two to plan the exercise.
Okay, and last question from my side, and then we'll take the audience question after finishing the diabetic part. What take home you want to give it to the patients who are having cardiac condition? What precaution, what in a pandemic situation, what precaution they should take, and to ensure the continuity of the care, what they should do at home? What all things they should take care must?
See, the take-home message would be, number one, we know that there's a trend that people suffering from heart disease are more prone for infection, number one. Number two, we know that they are more symptomatic compared to the others. Now, you have to take abundant precautions so that you don't land in trouble. Now, the key message I would say here is not only heart patients, everybody. This is not a battle for certain group of people. It's everybody versus a virus. And the thing is, this is an enemy that you cannot see. So how would you handle such an enemy? It's always, there's an English adage that says that a bird in hand is worth more than two in the bush. Now, what is the bird in hand? The bird in hand is the precautions that you can employ against this disease. You have to maintain the social distance. You have to wear the masks and the gloves. Make sure you sanitize well. When you come back in home, make sure you take a shower. These are the precautions. Now, why is this precaution important? The thing is, all these precautionary measures are in place so that we do not have number of people getting infected. Let the experts be able to help those who are already infected. Please do not add numbers to that. Then the system gets overwhelmed. They'll not be able to handle it. Okay, let's say we have an 8 billion population now.
True.
Right? Let's say 80% of that gets the mild infection. Now we have got a 20% can get 20% of 8 billion. Do we have the resources to handle that? No. So it's a concern for the fellow human being and the love for them that matters here. Only that will give us the unity to handle this enemy which is invisible. So my take-home message is that we can wait for the birds in the bush, that is vaccines and drugs, etc. But in the meanwhile, how you all of us can contribute is by handing, fulfilling that social responsibility, which is precaution, right?
Agreed.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Joji. So I'll come back to you with the questions on participant, but meanwhile I'll go to Dr. Girish. Dr. Girish, very similar questions but pertaining to the diabetes. Now, as I spoken to Dr. Joji that cardiac patients are at more risk of getting infection. So I just want to repeat the same thing, whether diabetes patient or uncontrolled diabetes patients are at more risk of getting COVID infection or not. That is the common question which we keep getting from various patients in community.
COVID-19 is as we know, it's a very new disease to the medical community. So as per the reports, the data we analyzed, especially from China, that's showing that the chance of getting the COVID infection in diabetic population and non-diabetic population are equal. But once it is got infected, the course of the disease in a diabetic patient will be different, can be worse also. That depends upon how was his diabetic status and how well it was controlled earlier. And that depends upon how the system, because it is a multi-system disease which affects most of the vital organs and system. Diabetes is such a disease. So what is the level of that such individual when he is getting an infection? If the sugar levels are high, if it is not under control, the chance of getting serious complications is more compared to the normal population. But there is no difference in getting and contracting COVID-19 infection. There is no difference in diabetic population or non-diabetic population. But the course of the disease will be more serious.
Okay. And during initial phase, when any patient who is encountering the infection, COVID-19, I mean to say diabetic patient, they have a different series of symptoms, or it will be very similar to what other patients are experiencing during initial phase?
Initial phase, as we know, the symptoms will be similar. That is usually fever, fatigue, dry cough. Even some part of the country where they detected anosmia as one of these symptoms. As we reported from UK, many patients are reporting with the lack of smell. That is one of the symptoms. And they can also get gastrointestinal symptoms. And the diabetic population there is no much different, there is no particular different symptom. But if the sugar is not under control, they can get many other symptoms due to the high blood sugar level, like dehydration, severe fatigue, sometimes even altered sensorium, like such situation. Because an infection itself is a stressful condition, so which can increase the blood sugar level in any patient, in any diabetic patient. So the chance of high sugar is more in diabetic population.
In relation to that, what are the symptoms or warning sign diabetic patients should watch on themselves? So they can proactively visit the physician if needed. So what all things they should keep watching on themselves? Because of they have various multiple comorbid condition, other things as well. So what they should put in their mind as a trigger factor kind of thing?
Correct. Because diabetic population are more prone to many of the comorbid or complications, as I said earlier. Whenever they have any difficult symptoms, either nowadays preventive aspects are more important because they have to stay back in home and they can use tele consultation through their close health workers. If they have a glucometer at home, they can check the sugars at least 1 or 2 days, that trend of the sugar and the ketone bodies. They can check ketones also. Now there are various type of equipments are available in the market. These two things you can check, and accordingly if it is remaining alarmingly high, see above 240 or 250, in that range the ketone bodies are high, they should seek a proper healthcare attention. And not only that, if they have chest pain or breathing difficulty, they should get immediate attention from a healthcare provider.
Okay. And doctor, as we know, diabetes and cardiac condition more prevails in the elder group of the population. So does immune system plays any role in getting the infection or so and so?
Immune system has very important role, especially in diabetic population, as you know, when the sugars are not under control. When an infection comes to a person, a diabetic patient, there will be impaired immune activity towards that infection. If their immune system is very alert and the sugars or glycemic controls are very good, they can control that infection earlier. But as the disease progresses, especially in the elderly people, the long-term diabetic status can impair the immunity, and that can eventually lead to difficult control of that infection, which will lead to many serious complications, especially in COVID. We are seeing pneumonia, sepsis, septic shock, or even worsening of the renal failure. All these complications can rise very fast. As doctors said, myocarditis and pericarditis, all these complications can develop in a diabetic patient.
And what patient can do to boost the immune system? I don't want to generalize, but still if you can share some thoughts how we can boost our immune system, because many patients does have immunocompromised condition because of the various comorbid conditions. So how we cope up with that? There is anything which we can do?
Immune system, to improve the immune system, there is no the simple medication for that. is how they control their diabetic. That is the one thing. If they have very good control of diabetes for many years, their systems, especially renal functions and cardiac functions, are well, that itself improve their immunity. And second thing, they should have a healthy diet. They should avoid the fast food diets and all those things they should avoid. They should have a good healthy diet and regular physical exercise and stress-free life plus sound sleep, at least 7 hours sleep. These itself improve the general immunity of a person.
Now coming to there is any difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes? Any precautions to be taken specific for type 1 or specific, something to be taken care extra on type 2, something on those lines?
Type 1 diabetes patients are more vulnerable to develop diabetic ketoacidosis. So that is an emergency condition because whenever there is an infection, the chance of condition which can go into a diabetic ketosis is very, very high. That is more common in type 1 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes also can land up in ketoacidosis, but it's more commonly seen in type 1. But there is no difference as such in type 1 or type 2, but what is the diabetic status, how well it was controlled in the previous years, that will determine the disease process.
Okay, understood. And does what symptoms patient should watch that he is developing diabetes ketoacidosis in type 1? What they should watch themselves?
They'll have severe, they can check the sugar level, that is the first and foremost thing, and the ketone bodies also they can check in, as I said earlier. These two things are very important, and they can have the associated symptoms like dehydration, high-grade fever, abdominal pain, persistent vomiting, nausea, and altered sensorium, and respiratory pattern. They will have a ketotic breathing, that smell, acetone, smell of an acetone. This smell in the breath, all these are the condition we can assess the patients having diabetic ketoacidosis.
So patient should keep a watch on those symptoms. If they have something like that, they should report immediately to the physician.
These are warning symptoms. They should get immediate medical attention.
Okay. Doctor, one thing which we keep reading and many patients keep asking is, if I had a virus, COVID virus, and I am recovered, do I have a chances to get second time? Whether it is a diabetic or non-diabetic, I am asking in general context.
Second infection means other than?
No, COVID infections. An example patient, I had a COVID infection today and I recovered. Do I have a chance to get second time COVID infection?
Based on these reports, it's very difficult to tell. Because there are some anecdotal reports are there, without analyzing the data in detail, we cannot comment whether there is a chance of
Getting second time?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's too premature to
Too
say.
premature.
Okay.
Because we are just recovering from the first wave. Okay, and now there have been incidents and reports from Japan that a person who was tested negative then got a second time it was checked again, it was positive. Now it could be, we do not know whether it's a reinfection or a relapse or a reactivation. You know, reactivation is a stage where it stays dormant for a long time and then comes back up again. So it's too, like I said, it's too premature, and we're just getting the first wave of information with regards to this
Because
virus.
this virus, which responds in different way in different individual, as doctor said, usually 5 to 7 days, by 7 days, usually this infection can get negative. But whether even on day 22nd also, it can remain, the reports came as positive. Still it is personally positive. So the development of antibodies and containing this virus infection is an important thing, but that is varying from individual to individual. So it's very difficult to answer this question at this point of time.
Okay. One more question in general, what all precautions community should take so they don't get a COVID infection when they go outside or within the house? What all precautions they should take?
In general, I can tell that preventive measures has more importance right now, because we don't have the correct treatment options or vaccination for this disease. At the same time, as everybody knows, general precautions like you should have clean your hands properly whenever you're touching any other common places, or whenever you're going to public spaces or touching any other thing. You should properly, frequently wash your hands at least for 20 seconds with hand rubs or even with soap and water, and keep a social distance at least 1 meter from those who are having any symptoms. You should keep a 1 meter distance. Second thing, whenever a person is having cough or sneezing, they should cover with a tissue, or they can cover with their bent elbow so that it will not spread to others. And using mask nowadays, using mask in different way that will help in spreading of the infection, especially even a surgical mask. If those who are having any infection, that can prevent spreading to other persons in the community.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr.
If I could add here, I mean, here's one picture that really inspired me, and that's the way the social media helps, the WhatsApp. You know, I saw a picture with a familiar background, and it was studded with coronavirus all over, big, huge balloons of it. And the caption underneath read that, if you could see this, would you dare to go out? You know, the problem here is we don't see it. So we don't understand the seriousness of it. So that's the reason why the stay at home kind of campaign is in place. It's once the spread increases, the chance of getting it by touching it or inhaling it is quite on the higher side. And the worse the news is that you can go and infect another elderly person or somebody who is immune compromised. So that's not a good thing to happen.
Agree.
So as far as among the list of things, minimize the number of times that you have to find it necessary to go out. Be more organized, in the sense, make a list of things. All right, keep your shoppings to maximum once or twice a month.
Okay.
All right, so hence you go out, very minimally.
Agree. Okay, doctor. Now we'll go to the. We have a lot of questions from participants, and the first question is to Dr. Joji. Will my immunity get compromised if I have a heart problem?
The heart problem does not, compromise the immunity. No. Essentially, I told you there are certain conditions, like a cardiac transplant patient, where you add in medicines that suppress the immunity, or there are conditions like cancer, wherein you take medications where your immunity can be affected. So heart disease does not make anybody's immunity low. Okay, but if you can go into other directions, like a heart patient is anxious, anxiety brings down immunity, you can bring in a big circle like that. But directly, the presence of heart disease, if you are confident, you are not anxious, your immunity doesn't come down.
Okay, and doctor, as we discussed that higher age population is at high risk. So there is one question from our audience is, my wife is 35 years younger than me. Does she is at high risk because I am old age? So that's the question. My wife is 20 years old to me and is
20 years younger?
Older.
Older, okay.
Yes, and 55. And she is at higher risk than I am?
No, the main population is 65 plus, and like I said, it is not a number. Coroner does not look whether you are 65 plus and then decide to infect you. We need to apply a little discretion here. Any person is prone to get this corona infection. It's not purely, it's only thing the elderly are more. So if you have an elderly person at home, you need to take the precautions.
Okay.
All right, in the sense like make sure that, how I do it. All right, I go to the hospital, high infectious zone. So by the time I come back home, the keys, etc. are, sterilized. You have to go and take a shower. That's after which you interact with your family members. So there is a priority that you need to keep in place. Okay, you have to, like I said right in the beginning, you have to be concerned about the other human being. It's not, I could just walk in the house and, the other person can get infected. So
Well,
hence you need to take
clear-
your,
as he said, the clear bet is that if you are not self-protected, even any doctors or any healthcare workers, even staff nurses, anybody can get this infection. Even though they are younger, the high chance of getting this infection is very commonly we can see. But they should take all the precautions. So those who are going very close to that such infected patient, they should have take more precautions like personal protective equipment should wear. That's
that's why I said, that's the misplaced courage. Like if you think that it happens only in the older age, that's not the
That's
message
not
that we
correct.
want to send across.
True, true. Doctor, a lot of participants have asked the question which you already answered, but just want to reiterate on that if you can speak. Do patients with diabetes have a higher chances of experiencing serious complications? So there are a lot of participants have asked the same questions, that there are chances that they may develop serious complications?
diabetic patient, I told in the first answer itself that that depends upon how their diabetes status, how well they are controlled in the previous years. If they are controlled very well and their HbA1c is less than 6.5 or between 6.5 and 7, and all other organs are functioning very well, especially the cardiac and renal function, all other systems are working well, the chance of much complications are less in that diabetic population. But those who are not having any control for many years, especially the initial years of the diabetes, that will determine their immunity to control that infection. Those who are having renal failure or even mild renal failure or moderate renal failure, they are more prone to develop much complications, or they have any liver diseases along the diabetes, liver diseases or peripheral neuropathy. All these systemic complications, patients are more prone to develop more complications. That's all.
Understood. Now there are, Dr. Girish, this question is to you. Tushara is asking that many of patients or he has seen that they are asymptomatic and are coming with different problems like backache and muscle cramps without any symptoms. So what precautions we should take in a community or when we visit any medical centers? I am visiting, so how I can keep myself safe in a community and when I am visiting any medical center or hospital?
A disease which is now prevalent in a community, the dictum is we have to consider each person as an infected person unless proved otherwise. So you have to take all, that's why we are giving much importance to the social distancing and clean your clean your hands whenever you are touching here and in the common places, because this infection is commonly spread through the droplets and fomites. When a person speaking loudly, when in an asymptomatic person also, if they are having the virus load, they can spray through their saliva. If it is falling on common any table or common surfaces, if you are touching that area, the chance of getting contraction to that infection more, because that's why we are telling avoid touching the common places or public places wherever you are going. That's the one thing. Even though if you are going, if you are touching, you should wash your hands properly with water, soap and water or hand sanitizer. At the same time, using mask whenever you are going to highly prevalent areas or even to hospitals, you should not take a chance. You should wear mask and gloves. And whenever you are wearing mask, there are some methods you should follow. The apparent should be, the metallic part should be the apparent, and that you should press immediately after putting that, and it should clearly fit into their face and nose, so that the air entry will be minimized. Second thing, before and after, before wearing the mask and after removing the mask also, you should wash your hands properly with soap and water.
Dr. Mahesh, I would want to add to what Dr. Girish said. Like I said earlier, it's not a one person's job, it's a mutual responsibility. Now you have a room, in a room, two people who are talking. There is a lot of micro droplets out. Now if both people were to wear mask, then the chance of infection, etc. comes down. So when a person goes to another specialty or to a center, it's safe for him if the others over there are also wearing mask and he's wearing a mask. So you don't infect others, others don't infect you. So the answer to that question is actually mutual responsibility.
It is everyone's
It cannot happen by if one person alone sort of tries to.
Everyone's responsibility. Each individual can contribute in this prevention of this, in controlling this. Or
Rather,
managing
each
this infection.
individual has to contribute.
It's a battle of the whole population world against this virus. So
True.
each individual has to play his own role. That's
Okay, one question we have from Juna that Ramadan month is approaching in weeks time. What advice or what extra care patient should take as of now? Patients who are having diabetes and patients who are having cardiac problem, what precautions they should take?
in diabetic population especially, they should be well hydrated. That is the one thing. And the timings of the tablets and medications and insulin has to be adjusted according to their diabetic status in consultation with their consulting doctor. Second thing, they should avoid heavy food items, especially the fried items, especially night time. They can get more gastric related problems. That can be avoided if they are taking very heavy and high calorie diet, especially at night time.
Anything specific, doctor, in
See,
cardiac patient?
heart-wise, we have the Ramadan time where you open the fast and the time when the fast starts. So they have a meal before that. So for the cardiac patients, how I advise is you can take one set of medications when you open the fast. If it is a medicine that needs to be 12 and 12 hours, the second medicine will be just before you start the fast. So before that, along with that meal. And like Dr. Girish said, it's very important to stay hydrated and do not overload with sugars, etc. Apparently now sugar is the dangerous food. So it's best to minimize sugary stuff.
I agree. Coming to the hydration, doctor, one of our participants, Saket, is asking, does drinking water reduce the chances of infection? More drinking of the water.
Especially
In general, COVID-19 situation.
There's no reports.
I wish it was that simple. If you could hydrate
There is
yourself.
no reports. There's
Yeah.
no evidence that taking more water or making the throat and the mouth wet. There is no evidence for that one.
Okay, so precautions need to be taken in general.
That's general precautions.
One of our participants is asking hydrochloroquine. There is a drug which is used widely. Whether it is effective for coronavirus or not. What is your advice on that?
There are evidences are there, but now large scale studies are going on and the data analysis are going on. There are many countries which are still using this hydroxychloroquine for treatment, but it is very early to comment about the efficacy of the drug, particularly in controlling that infection, because its specific effect on the virus, it's an anti-inflammatory drug and it has some antiviral effect as well. But particularly in this COVID-19, it's not using alone, it's using along with some other drugs. So its efficacy and its evidences are still yet to prove.
Okay. Harpal Singh is asking that I am, this question is to Dr. Joji, that I am having heartburn since long and I am ignoring because we need to stay home, fear of going outside. So whether I should ignore heartburn or I should consult to the doctor?
No, Mr. Harpal, you should not ignore the heartburn. One of the ways in which coronary artery disease can present is a heartburn. Now, if this you also need to qualify it more. If this heartburn is brought on by effort, most of cardiac symptoms are supply-demand mismatch symptoms. When people put effort, if a symptom worsens, that suggests that it probably is cardiac. On the other hand, if this heartburn worsens after food, then it's more suggestive of a gastrointestinal problem or an acid peptic disease. Now, there is no way to be certain, do not keep sitting on symptoms and then be sorry later. So my advice would be, if it's really recurrently happening again and again, you need to get an opinion about it, see what's the cause of it, of course. And if it is a cardiac thing, it can be treated and a disaster can be avoided. So to Mr. Harpal, my recommendation is, if it is really bothering you over and over again, please get it checked out.
Next question is from Divakar. He's asking that what precautions should be taken for a pregnant woman, and should they get tested for gestational diabetes, and if they get diagnosed, then what precautions to be taken?
That is in the
COVID situation in general, yes. In COVID perspective.
There is no specific special attention to check the diabetes status. It's not there, but as a routine test, phantom blood sugar and GTT tests are done. That is in the specific times. That is in the follow-up they are doing all these important tests. There is no special additional tests are required at this point of time.
Okay, last, before we close, again, any three things you would like to say, doctor? You are seeing a lot of patients nowadays, suspected patients, and what is your key things if you want to say? Already we have spoken a lot on that, but still if you can give a message to our audience, okay, what key things they should do so they don't encounter the COVID infection, please.
My personal view is that this is a disease we don't have much enough data or details about the disease. We don't have any particular treatment line, or even the vaccinations are in pipeline. So the prevention is the cornerstone of the main control of this infection. So for that we need many hygiene, especially our healthy food, good hydration, and stay home wherever is possible, and keep a social distancing, as well as clean your hands with soap and water or hand sanitizer, or whenever you have any symptoms like a cough, fever, or when you are sneezing, you have to take much precautions and cover the vulnerable population like elderly people and those who are having diabetes and cardiac, and those who are having immunosuppressed stage and cancer disease and asthmatic patients. Those population should be well shielded to prevent or to get protected from this type of infections. At the same time, they should not get panic on the situation, because as doctor told, we have 80% of the population having only the 80% of the disease is mild form only. Only 15% of disease condition can go into a severe state, and 6% or 5 to 6% can go into critic stage. So nothing to panic about the situation. We have to face this situation, and from history we know that we control many of the diseases, and we have to battle against this disease, and we have to control it. Together we can control this infection with proper guidelines that are given by the health authorities, local health authorities, and all general conditions. And control your blood sugars very well. Keep good hydration, and keep your medications, whatever the important medication that you have to reserve, and even especially the insulin and other important things, you have to keep it reserved, and keep a contact number of your healthcare workers and pharmacists, so that you will not get panic in the last minute to get the medicines. But stay at home and pray God for controlling this battle against this coronavirus, so that together we can win this battle.
Dr. Joshi, you would like to add anything?
I think Dr. Girish has covered most of the grounds, and what I need to add to that is the presence of coronavirus disease does not negate the other emergencies. That still exists, and that has to be treated in the same way you would be treating it if coronavirus was not there. So just because the stay at home advice is given, that's largely to prevent the infection and the community spread. Respect the symptoms that you're having, and if it cannot be managed at home, please, please, please do seek medical attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joji and Dr. Girish. So friends, thank you very much for joining us, and due to the time limitations, we are not able to address all the queries, but definitely we'll be replying to all the questions which we have raised on different platforms at earliest. And please stay tuned to Aster Volunteers page for upcoming web series. And remember, your safety is my safety. With that note, I, Dr. Mahesh, along with the panel doctors, signing out for today's webinar. Thank you.